What's up, alchemists? Welcome to MTG Alchemy. In today's video, we're going over the Muldrotha deck tech that Shelby's going to be playing in the next episode of Wizard Wars, coming up. What's up, alchemists? My name is Coy.
My name is Shelby.
And on this channel, we do gameplay videos, how to play videos, as well as deck tech videos just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing.
Alright, so we want to give a shout out to one of our patrons, Andreas German. You're awesome, man. Thank you for joining our community.
If you'd like to be a patron, go to patreon.com/MTGAlchemy, and from there you can check out different tiers and all kinds of ways to support the channel, as well as get involved with our MTG Alchemy community. Also, if you're new to Magic and you're still trying to learn, check out this link right here, and it'll take you to the videos where we actually walk you through how to play.
Alright, so today we are going to be talking about Muldrotha the Gravetide. Alright, so Muldrotha the Gravetide is a 6-drop 6/6. It is a blue, green, and black, and 3 colorless, legendary creature elemental avatar. And it says, during each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. So, pretty much anything but a sorcery or an instant.
Yep, anything. Artifacts, creatures, planeswalkers, anything that's a permanent land. You can play all of that with Muldrotha from your graveyard. It essentially makes your graveyard your entire hand. Alright, so the first category that we're going over is called Ramp It Up. Alright, so in the category of Ramp It Up, we're going to start with the creatures. Springbloom Druid, Sakura Tribe Elder, and Dreamscape Artist. So, Springbloom Druid is a 2 and a green for a 1/1 creature elf druid. When Springbloom Druid enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a land. If you do, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Sakura Tribe Elder is a 1 and a green for a 1/1 creature snake shaman. Sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder, search your library for a basic land card, and put that land card into play tapped, then shuffle your library. Dreamscape Artist is a 1 and a blue for a 1/1 creature. You can also tap 2 and a blue, tap it, discard a card, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So what makes these really cool, you can utilize these creatures to their full potential. So for instance, if Muldrotha is out and you've already played these cards, then you can play them again from the graveyard and get more lands. What makes Dreamscape Artist really cool is Dreamscape Artist is discard a card, sacrifice a land, search the library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. So when you sacrifice a land, with Muldrotha out, you get to play that land again anyway, so you just essentially got 3 land out of that deal. You just had to discard a card, which you can also play with Muldrotha. So for instance, if you discard a card, say it's a creature, you sacrifice a land, then you get to play that sacrificed creature with Muldrotha and play the sacrificed land, and you still get 2 basic land cards to the battlefield from your library. It's really cool, and it's important to note that these lands do not come into play tapped. Sakura Tribe Elder is also really cool because you sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder, search your library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped, then shuffle your library. So what's really cool about this is you get to play it from your hand for 2, you sacrifice it, go get a land, and then you can play it from your graveyard for 2, sacrifice and go get a land. So you get to ramp hardcore with Muldrotha out.
Alright, so this segment is going to be about protecting Muldrotha. She's kind of high cost, she is a 6-drop, but her abilities are awesome. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of protection in your hand for her so that you don't have to keep paying more mana to get her out. Alright, so we're going to start off by talking about Undying Evil, Blossoming Defense, and Swiftfoot Boots. Alright, so Undying Evil is a 1-drop black instant, and it says target creature gains Undying until end of turn, which just means that when it dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. This is good if somebody goes to kill Muldrotha. You can give it Undying Evil, and it doesn't die. Alright, the next one we're going to talk about is Blossoming Defense. This card's pretty popular. It's a 1-drop green instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. So this is good, again, if somebody tries to kill Muldrotha, targeting her specifically, or if somebody swings at you with a 6/6 creature and you want to be able to block it and not have Muldrotha die. It's a pretty good way to keep her alive. All right, the next one is an artifact equipment. It is a 2-drop, Swiftfoot Boots, and it has equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Equipped cost is 1. And this is just another good way to protect Muldrotha, give her hexproof. I mean, of course it won't protect her over, board wipes, but that's okay. I mean, it makes it to where no one can target Muldrotha specifically.
Yeah, it really helps when they can't be targeted.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, board wipes still happen, and that targets all creatures, but, I mean...
That's why you have counters.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of those counters, there are a few in the deck just to, again, protect Muldrotha from other people trying to kill her or get rid of her or whatever. We've got Sinister Sabotage and Unwind. Sinister Sabotage is a 2 blue and 1 instant, and it's just counter target spell. And it lets me surveil one, so I can look at the top card of my library, and I may put that card into my graveyard, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to.
Because you can just play it from your graveyard.
Right. I mean, if it's an instant or a sorcery, yeah, I'll probably leave it on the top, but most of the time, if it's something I can play with Muldrotha, I'm going to put that in the graveyard. Right. And then Unwind is a 1 blue and 2 instant, counter target non-creature spell, and untap up to 3 lands.
All right, so now we're getting into creatures and more creatures. Okay, so let's start with some of the utility creatures. Acidic Slime, Reclamation Sage, and Ravenous Chupacabra. So with Muldrotha's ability, it really amplifies these, right? So Acidic Slime's got Death Touch. It's a 5-drop 2/2. When Acidic Slime enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. So at this point, Acidic Slime comes in, and you can destroy one of those things, kill Acidic Slime by swinging with it or sacking it with, various sack outlets, which we'll get to here in a minute. And then play it again with Muldrotha. So it's really cool utility creature. Reclamation Sage is a 2/1 3-drop. When Reclamation Sage enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Ravenous Chupacabra is when it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. So with Muldrotha's ability, you guys can see that you get to continue to use these enter the battlefield abilities whenever these creatures die.
All right, so some more utility creatures that I want to talk about is Muldrifter, Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and Artisan of Kozilek. So Muldrifter is a 1 blue and 4. It is a 2/2 flyer, and when Muldrifter enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Or you can cast this spell for its evoke cost, which is a blue and 2. And if you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield.
Which is really cool because whenever you sacrifice it, when it immediately comes in, you're able to play it again with Muldrotha.
Yeah, so I can just keep drawing cards.
Yeah, so essentially you can draw 4 cards in a turn.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just with Muldrifter.
Right, and I love playing Muldrifter when I have other sack outlets on my battlefield.
Right, and we'll get to those sack outlets here in a second.
Yes, we will. But now I want to go over Gonti, Lord of Luxury. This card is one of my favorites. I love this card. It is a 4-drop, 2 black and 2, 2/3 with Death Touch, and when Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, I can look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. I usually choose Koi. Exile one of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it.
So what's really cool about this creature is it lets you utilize the cards in other people's decks so that you can kill them or make them lose the game with their own spells.
Yeah, it just lets you steal their cards. And with Muldrotha out, if you have some sort of sack outlet, you just kill Gonti and then keep bringing him back from the graveyard and keep taking your opponent's cards from their library so they don't even know what you have because it's exiled face down, and you can cast it whenever you want.
So again, just getting tons of value.
Oh yeah, Gonti is my favorite card, and almost on principle, I Gonti Koi every time. Alright, so now we have Artisan of Kozilek. It is a 9-drop Eldrazi. 10/9, and when you cast this spell, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, pulling stuff out of my graveyard pretty much for free, so I don't have to pay for it. So like if I have Gonti in there, I can Gonti.
Yeah, so you can play Artisan of Kozilek from your graveyard, and then it's going to bring something else back with it, and it has Annihilator too. So you're just getting a bunch of value off of Muldrotha's ability whenever you do play a creature like Artisan of Kozilek or Gonti.
And for those of you who don't know what Annihilator 2 is, or just Annihilator in general, it's when this creature attacks, a defending player sacrifices 2 permanents before they even have the chance to declare blockers, before they even have the chance to even...
Super bad, super broken ability. So the Alchemy Beaker is going to Spore Frog. So the reason we're putting the Beaker on this frog is because it's a 1-drop 1/1 and you can sacrifice Spore Frog and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So what's really sweet about this is you can hit all these creatures out on the board, right? Wait for somebody to swing in, sacrifice Spore Frog, no combat damage happens to you or the creatures that you blocked with or attacked with, and then because you sacrifice Spore Frog, you can just play it again next turn. So nobody gets to get any combat damage on you because Spore Frog's consistently out. It's consistently out and able to be sacrificed.
Right, it's just a 1-drop. It doesn't take a whole lot to get Spore Frog out, and it's another good way to protect Muldrotha.
Right, so it's a beautiful card, and it's definitely one of our favorites for the deck. All right, now in the More Creatures segment, we're going to be talking about creatures that make creatures, like Slimefoot the Stowaway.
Yeah, Slimefoot the Stowaway, he's pretty cool. He's a 3-drop, 2/3 legendary creature, Fungus. Gross. Whenever a sapling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. You can also tap 4 to create a 1/1 green sapling creature token.
Which is really cool when you've got a bunch of mana out because you can keep, sinking mana into it.
Right, and chances are with Muldrotha you're going to have a lot of mana because she is 6 to play. So even if you just get the 6 mana, you can still create at least 1 sapling.
Right, and with various sack outlets, you can just sack your saplings to tax your opponents and deal damage to them. So that's actually really bad with Tindershoot Dryad. Tindershoot Dryad is a 4 and a green for a 2/2 Dryad creature. It's also got Ascend. For those of you that don't know, Ascend, if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token, and saplings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. Now, the City's Blessing has different effects depending on what cards you have on board, but for this case, it just applies to the saplings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing.
Right, which is really cool because on each upkeep, you're making a sapling. They get pretty big. I mean, 3/3 is pretty big, especially when you have, like 15 of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, 3/3 is crazy.
Yes.
Okay, so other creatures that make more creatures is Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Sidisi Brood Tyrant is a 4-drop 3/3, 1 black, a green, and a blue legendary creature, Naga Shaman. Whenever Sidisi Brood Tyrant enters the battlefield or attacks, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from the library, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So what's really cool about this is you're getting card advantage with Muldrotha, basically. So you're getting all of these. Your graveyard is your hand. Now, whenever you mill stuff, you're also getting 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, which is a super cool and super. The card advantage with the creating tokens is pretty amazing. Going back to Ravenous Chupacabra and Acidic Slime and stuff like that, Yurok the Desecrated is a 2, a black, a green, and a blue for a 3/5. Legendary creature, Elemental Horror, Death Touch, Lifelink. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Which is awesome.
Which is crazy with Ravenous Chupacabra because now you get to play it from your graveyard or from your hand. So let's just say you play it from your hand, you kill 2 creatures, you sack it, now you're going to play it again from your graveyard and you're going to kill 2 more creatures with it.
Right, and it's crazy. You can do that with so many good creatures, like Gonti, Lord of Luxury.
Yep.
You can steal other people's cards multiple times. It's awesome.
Right, and what's even cooler is stuff like Dreamscape Artist, because then you can tap 3, discard Sakura Tribuilder, and play that from your graveyard. as well as get all that card advantage. It's pretty interesting how that works with Yorick. And with that trigger doubling in mind, let's move on to the next segment. All right, so this segment is called Sack 'em
and Tax 'em. All right, so 3 creatures in the Sack 'em and Tax 'em category are Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Zulaport Cutthroat, and Butcher of Malakir. All right, so Grey Merchant of Asphodel is a 5-drop, 2 black and 3 creature zombie. It is a 2/4. When Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Each swamp and the mana cost of permanents you control count toward your devotion to black.
So what makes this creature really cool is that when it enters the battlefield, it drains your opponents based on your devotion to black. And even better, you can sacrifice it and do it again with Muldrotha.
Yeah, you can just keep making your opponents lose life. You can essentially kill them with this
with
card.
With just Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
Yeah, you just keep playing it, and then you keep playing creatures that have black in their mana cost to make them lose even more life, and you gain that much life.
Very sweet card. Very sweet card.
It is. The next one we want to talk about is Zulaport Cutthroat. It is a 2-drop, 1/1. Whenever a Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. This card's really awesome when you have a lot of Saprolings out with Slimefoot the Stowaway.
Yep.
Because each opponent is losing life off of your Saprolings dying, and they're also losing life because Zulaport Cutthroat is out.
Yep.
So it's kind of double damage.
Yep.
It's really cool.
It is really cool because now when all your Saprolings die and everything's getting sacked or creatures are dying, it's draining them for life. But you also remember you can also sack Grey Merchant of Asphodel, which is going to make them take a damage. You're going to gain a life because of Zulaport Cutthroat. And now you're going to get to play Grey Merchant of Asphodel again and then sack it again. So you just keep pinging them, nickel and diming them to death.
Right.
Until they're gone.
They're dead.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a little bit crazy. Another one that's really good that I love a lot is Butcher of Malakir. It is a 2 black and 5 vampire warrior. It is a 5/4 flyer. And when Butcher of Malakir or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. And this card is really crazy to have out when you do have a lot of Saprolings and a sack outlet, because if you have Zulaport Cutthroat out, not only are they taking damage from my creatures dying, they are also having to sacrifice creatures.
Right.
Because of Butcher of Malakir.
Right. Yeah. Butcher of Malakir is an insane card to have out. Another one that to briefly mention too, just to mention it because you all know what it does. Blood Artist. Just saying. All right. So another card in the same vein as Butcher of Malakir is Dictate of Erebos. Dictate of Erebos is a 5-drop enchantment, 3 and 2 black. It's got Flash. Flash is really important on this card. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So what's really cool about Dictate of Erebos is now when your creatures die, your opponents have to start sacrificing creatures. Mm-hmm. And if you swing out, let's just say you swing out, and you don't want to sacrifice Spore Frog to prevent all that damage. You want all that damage to happen so that when your creatures die, everybody has to start sacking creatures. And what's really cool about it having Flash is you can go to combat first, wait for them to declare blockers, and then before damage you flash in Dictate of Erebos, and now you've got them in a really bad position.
Right, so whatever creatures of mine die that blocked, they will have to sacrifice creatures.
Yep, so now they got to sack them all. And so do everybody else on the table.
Right, so it doesn't even matter that they swung out, really.
Because
they're losing their creatures anyway.
Dictate of Erebos is definitely a must
it's a really good
Muldrotha for sure. Some other ones that we want to get to real quick is Plaguecrafter, Fleshbag Marauder, and the Eldest Reborn. Plaguecrafter is a 2 and a black for a 3/2. Creature, human, shaman. When Plaguecrafter enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. So when you play Plaguecrafter, what's really cool about it, along with Muldrotha's ability, is now you can do that twice in a turn, essentially, if you want to.
Right, you can just sacrifice it twice.
Right, same thing with Fleshbag Marauder. It's also a 3-drop, 2 and a black for a 3/1. When Fleshbag Marauder enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. Also cool because now each player has to sack another creature. They're going to take a life because Zulaport Cutthroat's out on the battlefield. They're also going to sack another creature because Butcher of Malakir's out. And they're going to sacrifice another creature because Dictate of Erebos is out. So you have the entire board on lockdown by playing these types of cards.
Right, and it's crazy because with Fleshbag Marauder and Plaguecrafter, you can sacrifice that creature. You can just sacrifice the one you played. And it's really good to do early game, I like playing them early game, at least Plaguecrafter, because chances are on turn 3, not a whole lot of people may have a creature out, so that forces them to discard a card.
Right. Or if somebody's show Untitled Kozilek, then you can make them sack that.
Exactly.
Anyways, so in the same vein as those other 2 creatures is the Eldest Reborn. It's a 5-drop, 4 and a black for an enchantment saga. So on the first chapter, it says each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Chapter 2 is each opponent discards a card. Chapter 3, put a creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So just another type of card that you can play with Muldrotha's ability. So you can continuously keep doing this, and you can continuously make people sacrifice creatures and planeswalkers. You can continuously make them discard their cards in their hand, and then you can continuously keep bringing creatures or planeswalkers out from anyone's graveyard.
Any graveyard. So if you had to sacrifice a Kozilek, I could steal it.
And then you get it.
Yeah. It's a little crazy. Alright, so this isn't so much of a sack outlet as it is a board wipe. It is Phyrexian Scriptures. It's a 4-drop, 2 and 2 black, and it is another enchantment saga. Chapter 1 is put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Now this is where we get into the board wipe. Chapter 2 is destroy all non-artifact creatures. So this is pretty fine. I usually only ever do this when Muldrotha is usually the only one out on the field.
So you get to protect Muldrotha and then destroy
everything else. And hopefully get some commander damage in on somebody who has no creatures. Alright, so Chapter 3, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. So this is really cool because not only are you protecting Muldrotha, she's the only one on the battlefield, you're also exiling your opponent's graveyards, and it's only your opponent's graveyards. You still get to keep yours, you still have Muldrotha out, you can still play all your stuff from your graveyard, and it kind of hopefully cripples everybody else.
So another 2 ways, and the best ways to be able to sack your creatures, is with Ashnod's Altar and Altar of Dementia. Ashnod's Altar is a 3-drop artifact, sacrifice a creature, and add 2 colorless to your mana pool. Now keep in mind, you can sacrifice creatures this way at instant speed. So when you sacrifice creatures at instant speed to Ashnod's Altar, triggering Dictate of Erebos and Butcher of Malik here, then now you basically can use that as a settle, so to speak, right? You can use it so whenever they go to attack you, you can just get a bunch of value, make them sack all the creatures they were attacking you with anyway, and then you get to replay them.
And you can use that mana if you have Slimefoot out to make more creatures to sacrifice.
Correct, yeah. It's an insane card for Muldrotha.
Yes. Another one that I like to play is Altar of Dementia. It's a 2-drop artifact with sacrifice a creature. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into their graveyard. I love this card. I love playing it with Muldrotha because it lets me put cards in my graveyard basically at instant speed. I can't always play those cards right away, but it does give me some card advantage with Muldrotha out.
And keep in mind that you can also mill your opponents out with them. So if you've got big creatures or just a million 1/1s, you can mill your opponents out that way. Also, you can also do it to sacrifice your own creatures, causing those die triggers again, and milling yourself so that you have more card advantage against your opponents.
Yep.
All right, so now we're going to go over the planeswalkers in this deck.
Alright, the first planeswalker I want to talk about is Tamio, Collector of Tales. She's a 4-drop, 2, a green and a blue, and she starts out at a 5. And her main ability on here is spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause you to discard cards or sacrifice permanents.
Which is super cool because now you're basically saying, I am the only one in charge of my destiny. You don't get to make me sack creatures. You don't get to make me discard cards. You know why? Because I am me.
Basically, yes, that's what Tamio is saying. So she starts out at a 5, and her +1 is choose a non-land card name, then reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all cards with the chosen name from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. I really like this ability because most of the time I just name a random card in my deck because I want cards in my graveyard anyway.
What's really cool is you don't even have to name a card that's in your deck if you want them.
Exactly.
Because you want all of them to go to the graveyard anyway, which is just putting them in your hand essentially. So you just name a red spell like Shock, and now all of these, you get all of those cards in your graveyard, which are still essentially in your hand.
Right, so you just get to dump cards into your graveyard, which is essentially what you want with Muldrotha. Her neg 3 ability is return target card from your graveyard to your hand. I like using this ability for instants and sorceries that are in my graveyard that I can't always get out, that I can't play with Muldrotha, so it kind of lets me play some of my other spells that I can't play with Muldrotha, I can use with Tamio. I can get them out.
Even better is when you play a Chupacabra from your hand, right? And then you sack it to make somebody else sack something, and then they lose a life because of Zealoport Cutthroat, and they all have to sack 2 creatures because of Butcher of Malakir and Dictate of Erebos. So they have to do all that because you just sacked Ravenous Chupacabra, plus the creature that Ravenous Chupacabra just blew up. And then you play Ravenous Chupacabra again with Muldrotha, sack it again, cause all those abilities to trigger again, and then you use Tamio's neg 3 ability to do it again. So now you just board wiped everybody because of 3 cards?
Yeah.
So Ashiok Dreamrender is a 3-drop. It's got 1 and 2 hybrid Dimir, legendary Planeswalker. She happens to be my favorite Planeswalker, by the way. She starts out with a loyalty of 5. Her main text, or her enchantment text, I guess, is spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their libraries.
I love that.
Her neg 1 is target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. And what's super cool about Ashiok is that target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. You're going to target yourself.
Yeah.
You're not a mill deck, so you want to target yourself to mill cards into your graveyard, and then you have a bigger hand because of Muldrotha, and then everybody else has to exile their graveyards.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's awesome.
It's a super cool mechanic and super cool way of manipulating a card like Ashiok into a deck like this, because it just benefits you solely. There is no downside for you.
Right, and it makes it to where somebody can't really even respond by Mystical Tutor or Demonic Tutor or any other tutor cards,
right,
because it forces you guys to not search your libraries. It basically renders all of your search cards useless.
Right, they can't search. I mean, they can search in response to Ashiok, but they can't.
Right.
They can't search in response to anything after Ashiok.
Right, after Ashiok resolves, that's it. You cannot search your library. All right, now we're going to go over the utility lands.
All right, so the lands that we want to talk about is Ghost Quarter, Strip Mine, and Field of Ruin.
Love that one.
Ghost Quarter is really cool because you can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool, but you can also tap it, sacrifice Ghost Quarter, destroy target land. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle his or her library. But what's super cool about Ghost Quarter is if people have annoying lands out, like, for example, Search for Azcanta, or any of those types of lands, or any lands that tax you, or Besiege You, who shelters all, or Cavern of Souls, where they can't, you can't counter different things, or it makes it where other people can't counter things. You use Ghost Quarter to blow up those lands, and then what's really cool with Muldrotha's ability is you can just play it again and do it again. So Strip Mine is another land. You tap it to add 1 colorless to your mana pool, or you can tap it, sacrifice Strip Mine to destroy target land. But what's really cool about that is you can tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target land, and then say you haven't played your land per turn, you can play that from your graveyard with Muldrotha and kill another land on the same turn.
And
so
your opponents don't benefit from it either.
Right, your opponents do not get a land back from that, which makes it even better. So Strip Mine is an essential card in this deck. Another one is Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin is kind of the same thing, but you want to be careful with it. So if you've got a super annoying land that's like Besiege You or Cavern of Souls, then absolutely. But you tap it to add one colorless mana to your mana pool, or you can tap 2, tap and sacrifice it and destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls, and then it says each player searches his or her library for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So everybody at the table is going to benefit from this, except for the person that you're destroying, Cavern of Souls. They won't benefit as much. They still get to go get a land, but they just lost Cavern of Souls. So you want to be careful with this land.
Right, because you are giving everybody else basically a free land.
Right, unless you're running a Pillow Fort deck, and then this is a really good land.
Yeah.
So next we're going to be talking about search, but not your normal search. Not like Vampiric Tutor or Demonic Tutor. We're going to be searching to our graveyard.
Yes, we are. Entomb and Buried Alive.
Entomb is a 1-drop instant. Search your library for a card and put that card into your graveyard and then shuffle your library. So what's cool about cards like these is they're kind of inexpensive. I mean, I want to say they're inexpensive, and they're a lot cheaper than like say Vampiric or Demonic Tutor.
Definitely.
But what's really cool is you get to search for your library for a card and put it into your graveyard, i.e. put it into your hand. So again, Entomb's really cool. In the same vein
is Buried Alive. Buried Alive is a 2-drop and a black sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. I personally like grabbing cards like Gonti, Lord of Luxury, so that I can steal other cards from other players. I love doing that. Or I like to grab Artisan of Kozilek, because when you cast them from your graveyard, you get another creature from your graveyard. Or just the bigger creatures.
you like playing cards that are fun.
I do. I really do. It's fun.
I like playing cards that'll win.
Right. And Buried Alive, I usually only have 2 creatures in mind when I'm going to search, and you can search for up to 3. So I usually choose something like Grey Merchant of Asphodel or Twilight Prophet. Twilight Prophet's a really good one. On your upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library. Your opponents lose life equal to that mana cost, and you gain that life.
All right, let's talk about win conditions. So you always have to have reliable win conditions in your deck. You always
Right.
have to have a way to finish off your opponent.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. So now we're going to be talking about Torment of Hailfire, Biovisionary, and Infinite Reflections.
Torment of Hellfire is a 2 black and an X sorcery. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card,
And when you do that for 1,000,000,
which I like to do. So I like to keep this card in my hand when I have a lot of mana open, and I like to keep a couple mana open at least so that I make sure I have a counter spell in my hand, because this spell likes to get countered a lot, especially when I Torment of Hailfire for like 1,000,000.
yeah, when you Torment of Hailfire for even 20 or 30,
Which I like to do.
it's insane, because remember, you get to sack your creatures to stuff like Ashnod's Altar, and it'll give you 2 mana. So you can sack all of your creatures, you get all of those sack and die effects, plus you're getting 2 mana for each one of those to filter it into Torment of Hailfire. Alright, so moving on to Biovisionary. Biovisionary is a 3-drop, a 1, a green, and a blue for a creature, human, wizard. It's a 2/3. At the beginning of the end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. And I know what you're asking yourselves. Wait a minute, you can only have one type of, one creature of any type in a commander deck, and that's true. But when you pair that with Infinite Reflection, Infinite Reflection is a 6-drop enchantment aura, enchant creature. When Infinite Reflections enters the battlefield, attach it to a creature. Each other non-token creature you control becomes a copy of that creature. Non-token creatures you control enter the battlefield as a copy of enchanted creature. So now when you play this, when you play Infinite Reflections and you've got 4 or more non-token creatures out, at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more, name Biovisionary, you win the game.
Yeah.
So you just win flat out for having 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary.
Right.
And it's a really, really cool combo.
It really is, and you and Billy have gone to great lengths to make sure that I don't win that way.
That's very true.
Billy has killed himself in a game to make sure he does not lose to Biovisionary. And it's extremely frustrating. Billy.
All right, we hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys check out the tapped out link below so that you guys can check out all the cards that we didn't get to today. As always, play more Magic, and we'll see you guys next time on MTG Alchemy.